Right there. Gather round, you young uns. Pull those blankets tighter, 'cause the night's got a chill that ain't just from the air. You ever hear the wind whisper through these Alabama woods? Sometimes, if you listen real close, it ain't just the leaves rustling you hear. Sometimes, it's something else. Tonight, we're gonna start with a story that'll make the hairs on the back of your neck stand taller than a longleaf pine. It's a tale they tell all over this state. Each town got its own version, its own twist of sorrow, but the feeling it leaves you with, that's always the same. This one I'm gonna tell you. This one comes from up near Oxford. They call it the Crybaby Bridge. Now this bridge ain't nothing special to look at in the daytime. Just concrete and steel stretching over a sleepy little creek. Cars and trucks rumble across it without a second thought. But come nightfall, that bridge remembers. It remembers a pain so deep, so raw, it bleeds into the very air. See, a long time ago, nothing but a dirt road ran through these parts. And where that bridge stands now, there was just a rickety wooden one. A young woman lived nearby, barely more than a girl herself. She had a baby, her whole world wrapped up in that tiny bundle. But life back then, it was hard, real hard. Folks struggled just to put food on the table. This young mother, she was desperate. The father of her child, well, he weren't around. And she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, the whispers and the stares following her everywhere. Shame and fear, they're a powerful poison, you know? They can drive a body to do things they'd never dream of in the light of day. One dark night, the moon hid its face behind thick black clouds, the kind of night where the shadows seemed to have a life of their own. That young woman, she bundled up her baby tight, held him close to her heart one last time, and walked down that dusty road towards the old wooden bridge. Nobody knows for sure what went through her mind that night. Maybe she thought she was doing what was best. Maybe she just couldn't see any other way out. But what they say, what they whisper when the wind picks up, is that she stood there on that old bridge with the creek rushing below. And then she let her baby go. The water was cold and unforgiving. The tiny cries, they were swallowed by the darkness, lost in the gurgle of the creek. And the young mother, she didn't last long after that either. Some say she wandered into the woods, her heart broken beyond repair, never to be seen again. Others say the guilt ate her alive until she couldn't bear it anymore. Now that old wooden bridge is gone, replaced by the concrete one you see today. But the sorrow lingers. They say on certain nights, especially when the moon is hidden and the air is heavy, you can still hear it. Drive across that bridge late at night, they say. Stop your car right in the middle, turn off the engine, and listen. Listen real close. You might just hear it. A faint, heart-wrenching sound. A baby crying. Not a strong, healthy cry, but a weak, lost wail that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Some folks swear they've seen things too. A misty white figure near the water. A fleeting shadow on the bridge. A feeling of icy cold that has nothing to do with the night air. They say it's the mother still searching for her lost child, her grief echoing through the years. Old man Hemmings, he used to live just down the road from that bridge. He told me once, his voice barely a whisper, that he'd been walking home late one night and he heard it clear as a bell. A baby crying so pitiful, it made his blood run cold. He looked all around, but there wasn't a house for miles, just the bridge and the dark woods. He got out of there faster than a scalded dog, and he never walked that road alone again. Now, I ain't saying it's true. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks. Maybe it's just the sound of the creek. But there are too many stories, too many folks who've heard that cry in the dead of night. Makes you wonder, don't it? Makes you think about the sadness that can cling to a place long after the people are gone. That's just the first story for you around this campfire tonight. A little something to get the blood pumping and the imagination running wild. You feel that chill? That ain't just the fire dying down. All right, now, settle in closer. Got another story brewing that'll make you think twice about walking alone in these Alabama woods. This one's about something a little more scaly. You ready for the next one? All right, you brave souls still with me? Good. That crybaby story, it tugs at the heart, don't it? Makes you feel for the lost and the lonely. But this next one, this one's different. This one ain't about sorrow. This one's about something else. Something that'll make you lock your cabin doors a little tighter tonight. This one's about the lizard man of Alabama. Now, Alabama's a beautiful state. Ain't no doubt about that. From the mountains in the north to the Gulf Coast down south, we got all sorts of landscapes. And with all that wild land, well, you're bound to have some strange critters calling it home. Most of them keep to themselves. But every now and then, something different shows up. This story I'm about to tell you, it ain't just some campfire tale. There are folks in this very state who swear on their mama's grave that they've seen something like it. Mostly down in the swampy parts, places where the water's dark and still, and the cypress trees stand like ancient ghosts. Places like Calhoun County, that's where a lot of these stories come from. They talk about a creature, tall, not like a man, not exactly, but walking upright like one. Only, this ain't no man. This thing, it's covered in scales, green, sometimes brown, they say. Rough and bumpy, like an alligator's hide, but smoother somehow. And its eyes, Lord have mercy, its eyes. They describe them as yellow or red, and they glow in the dark like embers. They call it the lizard man of Alabama. Now, for years, these were just whispers. Folks seeing something out in the swamps, maybe after a bit too much moonshine. They'd mumble about it in the general store, then laugh it off, embarrassed. But then came the tracks. Back in the late 80s, there were reports. Big, three-toed tracks found in the mud near the rivers and creeks. Tracks that weren't like any animal anyone had ever seen. They were big, too. Some as long as a man's forearm. And they weren't making no sense. Whatever made 'em walked on two legs, but its feet, they were something else entirely. Then came the sightings. More and more people started talking. Farmers coming across strange damage to their property. Fences torn down, livestock spooked half to death. And some claimed they saw it. A flash of green disappearing into the underbrush. A pair of glowing eyes watching from the shadows. One fella named Earl, he was fishing down by the Tallapoosa River one evening. Sun was just starting to dip below the trees, and the air was thick with the sound of cicadas. He cast his line out, peaceful as could be. Then he heard it. A rustling in the reeds, louder than any animal he knew. He turned his headlamp that way, and for a split second, he saw it. Tall and lean, standing on two legs near the water's edge, covered in dark green scales. Its face, he couldn't make out all the details in the dim light, but he saw the glint of those yellow eyes. It just stood there for a moment, looking right at him, and then it was gone. Vanished into the swamp like a ripple in the water. Earl, well, he didn't do much more fishing that night, or any night after that, for a good long while. He swore up and down what he saw was real. And he wasn't the only one. There were stories of strange scratches on cars parked near the woods. Loud, guttural growls that didn't sound like any known creature. Even some folks claiming they saw it running across the road faster than any human could. Now the scientists, they try to explain it away, say it's misidentification. A big alligator standing on its hind legs for a second. A bear with some kind of skin condition. Swamp gas playing tricks on people's eyes. But the folks who've seen it, they know what they saw. There's a fear in their eyes when they talk about it, a genuine terror that no logical explanation can quite erase. They say the lizard man is still out there, lurking in the deep, dark places of Alabama, watching, waiting. Some say it's shy, just trying to avoid people. Others whisper that it's territorial, and you don't want to stumble onto its patch. They say it's strong, with claws that can tear through metal. And those teeth, well, let's just say you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of them. So, next time you're out wandering in the woods, especially near the swamps and rivers, keep an eye out. Listen for strange rustlings. Look for tracks that don't quite belong. And if you see a pair of eyes glowing in the dark, well, you just might have had an encounter with the lizard man of Alabama. Spooky, ain't it? Makes you think twice about those late-night bathroom breaks, doesn't it? All right, the fire's still got some life in it. You ready for another tale? This next one. This one takes us to a place that's not wild and overgrown. This one takes us to a town, a ghost town. A place where the past refuses to stay buried. You ready to hear about the Phantom of Old Cahaba? That lizard fella, he gives me the creeps just thinking about him. All those scales and glowing eyes makes you want to stick to the well-trodden paths, don't it? But sometimes, the most haunting things ain't the ones with claws and teeth. Sometimes it's the ones you can't quite see, the ones that linger in the echoes of what used to be. And that brings us to our next story, about a place steeped in history and maybe a little something more. This one's about the Phantom of Old Cahaba. Now, Cahaba, that's a name you don't hear whispered too often these days outside of history books. But back in the early 1800s, that sleepy spot down where the Alabama and Cahaba rivers meet, well, that was the heart of this whole state. Our first capital city, it was. Bustling with life, with hopes and dreams. Steamboats paddled up the rivers, politicians argued in the halls, and folks danced and courted under the southern stars. But like so many things in life, Cahaba's glory didn't last. Yellow fever swept through, taking its toll. The capital moved north to Tuscaloosa, and slowly, year by year, Cahaba faded away. Buildings crumbled, streets grew over with weeds, and the laughter and the bustle turned to silence. Now all that's left is a ghost town, ruins standing like forgotten memories, whispering tales to the wind. And let me tell you, where there's a place with that much history, that much life lived and lost, well, there's bound to be a few spirits sticking around. In Cahaba, it's got more than its fair share of stories. One of the most famous, it's about a light. A phantom light that folks have seen out near the old covered bridge. Now there ain't much left of that bridge these days, just some pilings standing in the water like bony fingers. But that light, people still see it. Late at night, a soft, glowing orb, moving through the darkness. Sometimes it bobs on the water, sometimes it drifts through the trees. They say it's all sorts of things. Some folks believe it's the spirit of a slave, searching for their lost loved ones. Cahaba had its share of sorrow and injustice, and the pain of those times, it can leave a mark on a place. Others say it's the lantern of a riverboat captain, lost in the fog on one of those dark nights. Still others whisper that it's the ghost of a wealthy planter's wife, who lost her child and wanders the ruins, forever searching. Old Man Tucker, he used to be the caretaker out there, lived in a little cabin right near the entrance. He told stories about that light for hours, said he saw it himself more times than he could count. Never felt like it meant harm, he said, just sad. Like it was looking for something it could never find. But the light ain't the only thing they talk about in Cahaba. Oh no, there are other whispers on the wind. Folks who've walked those deserted streets after dark talk about hearing faint music. A waltz playing on a long broken piano. The echo of laughter that fades as soon as you try to follow it. The rustle of silk dresses, as if ladies in hoop skirts are still strolling through the overgrown gardens. They say you can sometimes catch a glimpse of them too. Fleeting shadows in the moonlight. A figure standing in the doorway of a ruined mansion, only to vanish into thin air. A feeling of being watched, even when you know you're the only living soul for miles. One story that always sent a shiver down my spine was about the Perdue family cemetery. It's out there in the woods, the tombstones all mossy and worn. They say if you go there late at night, you can hear the faint sound of children's voices. Laughing, playing, even though all those children have been gone for over a century. And then, there's the well behind the old Crocheron mansion. Legend has it that a young woman fell into that well and drowned. They say on quiet nights, you can still hear her faint cries for help, rising up from the darkness. Cahaba. It's a beautiful place in the daytime, peaceful, with the Spanish moss hanging from the ancient oaks, and the river flowing by like time itself. You can almost imagine what it must have been like in its heyday. But when the sun goes down, and the shadows stretch long and eerie, that's when Cahaba remembers. That's when the past comes alive again. It's a place where the veil between worlds feels thin, where the echoes of laughter and sorrow still linger in the air. So if you ever find yourself down that way after dark, be respectful. You're walking on hallowed ground. You're in a place where the spirits of the past might just be listening. And who knows, you might just see that phantom light yourself, drifting through the darkness. A lonely beacon in the Alabama night. Chilling, ain't it? Makes you wonder what stories those old ruins could tell if they could speak. All right, the fire's holding steady. You ready for a different kind of scary? Something a little more wild. This next story, it's about a creature that's said to roam the back roads and the lonely stretches of highway. They call it the Goat Man of Pope's Chapel Road. You ready to hear about him? Them ghosts and phantom lights, they can give you a case of the shivers, all right? But at least they're mostly just there. Watching. Listening. This next story, though, this one's about something a bit more active. Something that ain't afraid to show itself. Something that'll make you check your rearview mirror a little more often when you're driving down a lonely country road. This one's about the Goat Man of Pope's Chapel Road. Now, Coleman County, that's a good, honest part of Alabama. Rolling hills, farms, friendly folks. You wouldn't think something truly monstrous could come out of a place like that. But sometimes the strangest things take root in the most ordinary soil. And around Pope's Chapel Road, well, they say something downright peculiar has been seen wandering the woods for years. They call it the Goat Man, and the name pretty much tells you what you need to know, though the reality is far more unsettling than just a fella who likes goats a little too much. This ain't no man in a costume, mind you. This is something else. Something that looks like a twisted mix of man and goat. They say it stands tall, taller than most men, with thick, powerful legs that end in cloven hooves. Its upper body is more human-like, with broad shoulders and hairy arms. But the head, oh, that's the part that'll stick with you. A goat-like head, with thick horns curving back and wild, yellow eyes that seem to hold a wicked intelligence. Coarse, matted fur covers its body, a mix of brown and black, and it's said to stink something awful, like wet animal and something darker. Now, the stories about the Goat Man, they ain't always consistent. Some folks say it's just a harmless creature, shy and avoiding people. They say it roams the woods, looking for scraps and keeping to itself. But the stories that stick, the ones that make your blood run cold, those paint a much more sinister picture. They say the Goat Man is aggressive, that it doesn't like folks trespassing on its territory. There are tales of hikers and hunters who've stumbled upon it in the woods and barely made it out with their lives. They talk about guttural snarls, the thud of hooves on the ground, and a terrifying speed that no human could ever match. Old Mrs. Gable, she lived on Pope's Chapel Road for 80 years. She swore she saw it once, back when she was a young woman. She was walking home from a church social late one night, the moon hanging like a silver coin in the sky. She heard something moving in the trees beside the road, figured it was just a deer. But then, it stepped out into the moonlight. She said it was the most horrifying thing she'd ever laid eyes on. Tall and hairy, with those awful horns and those glowing eyes, it just stood there, staring at her, and let out a blood-curdling bleat that wasn't like any goat she'd ever heard. She didn't wait around to find out what it wanted. She ran all the way home and didn't sleep a wink for a week. There are other stories, too. Tales of livestock gone missing, fences torn apart, strange, unidentifiable tracks found in the mud. Some folks even whisper that the Goat Man is responsible for darker things, things that go beyond just scaring folks. They say there's a wildness to Pope's Chapel Road, a feeling of unease that settles over the place after dark. Animals get skittish, dogs bark at nothing in particular, and every now and then, you might just catch a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, something that ain't quite human and ain't quite animal. Some folks try to explain it away, saying it's just a myth, a story to scare kids. But there are too many people who claim to have seen it, too many strange things that have happened out on Pope's Chapel Road. Makes you wonder if there ain't a kernel of truth in those terrifying tales. So, next time you're driving through Coleman County late at night and you find yourself on Pope's Chapel Road, maybe roll up your windows a little tighter. Turn up the radio, and try not to look too closely into the woods. You never know what might be looking back. You never know what might be lurking just beyond the trees, with cloven hooves and those wild yellow eyes. That one get under your skin a little? It's a different kind of fear than the sad story of the crybaby or the lonely ghost of Cahaba, ain't it? This one's got teeth and horns. Alright, just one more story for tonight before we let the fire die down and the night truly settles in. This last one, it's a local legend, not too far from here actually. It's about a place where the past and the present collide in a most unsettling way. You ready to hear about the haunted railroad tracks of Siluria? Alright, gather in close, you brave souls who've stuck it out this far. The fire's burning low and the shadows are getting long. This last story, it's a sad one in a way, but it's also a story about something else. Something that makes you wonder about the unseen forces around us. This one's about the haunted railroad tracks of Siluria. Now Siluria, it's a quiet little community down in Shelby County. Seems peaceful enough. But beneath that calm surface, there's a story etched in the land. A tragedy that they say still echoes through the years. And it all centers around the old railroad tracks that run through there. A long time ago, so the story goes, a terrible accident happened. A group of young children, maybe playing near the tracks, maybe trying to cross, they were struck by a train. It was a horrific event, the kind of thing that leaves a scar on a whole community, a loss so profound it's hard to even imagine. Well, time went on. The tracks are still there, trains still rumble through, but something changed after that day. Folks started talking, whispering about strange things happening near those tracks. It started small, people hearing faint sounds on the wind, a child's giggle maybe, or the sound of someone calling out, soft and distant. They'd look around, but there'd be no one there. Just the tracks, the trees, and the quiet Alabama air. But then the stories got stranger, more specific. Folks started talking about their cars. See, there's a spot on those tracks, a slight incline. And the legend goes that if you put your car in neutral right there, something will push it uphill. Now you might think it's just the lay of the land, an optical illusion. But the folks who've tried it, they swear it's not. They say you can feel it. A gentle push from behind, like unseen hands on your bumper. Slowly but surely, your car will start to roll uphill against the pull of gravity. And that's not all. Some people who've done this, they say they hear it. The faint sound of children's laughter all around the car. Happy, innocent sounds, yet tinged with a sadness that'll send a shiver down your spine. Some even say they felt tiny handprints appear on the dusty trunk of their car after it's been pushed. Sheriff Brody, he's been in Shelby County for 30 years. He's heard all the stories about those tracks. He's a practical man, a man of logic. He's tried to explain it away. Maybe a slight grade you can't see, maybe just people's imaginations running wild. But even he admits, there have been things he can't quite explain. Folks he trusts, solid, reliable people, swearing they've felt that push, heard those faint giggles. He even tried it himself, one quiet night. Put his patrol car in neutral, and he'll never quite admit it outright, but he didn't deny the way his car slowly started to roll uphill. And he'll definitely never talk about the faint, playful sounds he thought he heard on the breeze. They say it's the spirits of those children. Still there, still playing, near the place where their young lives were tragically cut short. Maybe they're trying to help, pushing your car to safety. Maybe they just want to be remembered. Maybe they just want to play. There are folks who avoid those tracks altogether, especially after dark. They don't want to tempt fate, don't want to hear those ghostly whispers or feel those unseen hands. But there are others, curious souls, who go there late at night just to see for themselves, to feel that strange push, to listen for the laughter on the wind. It's a sad story, the one that hangs over those tracks, a reminder of a tragedy. But it's also a story that makes you think about what lingers after we're gone. About the connections that might still exist, unseen, unheard, yet somehow felt. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, maybe you'll think about those children in Siluria. And if you ever find yourself driving down those lonely tracks, well, maybe put your car in neutral, just for a moment, and listen real close. You never know who might be there, ready to give you a little push. Well, that's all the stories I've got for you tonight around this campfire. The embers are low, and the night is deep. Hope you enjoyed the tales. Sleep tight now. And don't let the shadows play too many tricks on your mind. You never know what might be out there in the Alabama night. Good night now, And try not to dream of scaly creatures or hear any faint cries on the wind. You hear? Good night.
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.